Aristotle and Thomas Aquinas after him looked at the idea of happiness. For them, we're all hardwired for happiness. It is the end goal, the eudaimonia or eudaimonia, the flourishing of the human soul is the end goal that we all seek. But where is it to be found? Well, first of all, Aristotle says in his Nicomachean Ethics that it is not found in pleasure as the absolute form of happiness. I was exploring this today in a lesson. Aristotle states that pleasure accompanies good activities. We do not first calculate the amount of pleasure and then choose the activity which creates that maximum amount of pleasure. That would be like being strapped in a pleasure seat and rather than living your life just receiving pleasure stimuli. That's not what we want. That's not what satisfies. It has no purpose. It's the purpose. The pleasure accompanies the purpose. We do not say to ourselves that train spotters seem to get more pleasure than other people, so therefore we must take up train spotting. Because if to us that would be meaningless, well, I don't care if they're the most buzzed out group of people I've ever met in my life. It ain't going to mean anything to me. This is why natural hedonism falls, and also, things like pornography and falling into the pleasure trap of eating, sex, different things, sex addiction, pornography, all these things. It fails to bring true happiness, and it's a case of taste and see. You shall know the fruit, you shall know the tree by its fruit, Jesus says, and very much will know fake happiness from its fruit, and the fact that it doesn't last, and the fact that it's mingled with pain, remorse, guilt, shame, darkness, depression, whatever it be. The fact that it's outside of us, leaving us dependent like a slave to it. The fact that it's completely meaningless, like this internet garbage that's plugged in to the modern person's reality, cannot bring true happiness, because pleasure is meant to accompany purpose. Pleasure is meant to be an accompaniment to incite us to continue an activity like eating. The pleasure is there to encourage us to eat. Reproduction, the pleasure is there to encourage us to reproduce. Exercise, the pleasure is there to encourage us to move our bodies and exercise. But to simply try and take a pill or an injection or a stimuli on a screen and say that is the goal of my life, that is the purpose of my life, is empty, meaningless. How to escape the pleasure trap with some study of Book 10 of the Nicomachean Ethics and Thomas Aquinas' Summa Theologica, Volume 2, question 1 to 5, and continuing. Thomas Aquinas really looks in detail at what then does happiness consist in. Does it consist in pleasure? No. Does it consist in wealth? Well, wealth you can lose. It's not for everyone. It's not accessible to everyone. It's outside of you, making a slave to it. It's a vehicle, not an end in itself. Is it fame? Well, fame leaves you dependent on other people who are highly fickle, so it doesn't give you complete rest. And just having fame, we know from experience, doesn't make people happy in and of themselves. Otherwise, there'd be no depressed, unhappy celebrities, and so on and so forth. Is it power? Power is elusive. Power often leads us defensive, that we don't lose it. It can often lead us compromised ethically and in our conscience to acquire it. And it's subject to all kinds of worldly arrows. So what then does true happiness consist in? True human flourishing, but the encounter with the absolute good, Aristotle will say, and Aquinas will develop that idea that the absolute, the summum bonum, can only be God. Eternal, unchanging, uncorruptible, completely pure, completely joyful and radiant, within and beyond us. But how? Is it merely an intellectual acquiring with syllogisms? Perhaps Aristotle was too keen to go down that route. Perhaps the route of logic and reason and study. Or is it in the nous, in the intuitive aspect of the purified mind, in the heart, with the passions stilled, the mind in the heart, like a mirror receiving the light of God and radiating it back in joyful sonship?